the India-Iran Afghanistan venture to start the Chabahar Port in Iran and give access to Afghanistan to export and import goods for a landlocked country like that, as well as for India to access Central Asia, has finally opened. And here we are to discuss the significance, the strategic and geopolitical significance of the Chabahar port for both India and Afghanistan besides Iran. We have with us Anilesh Mahajan, who covers strategic affairs for us and policy. Anilesh, let's start with what is it that this means for Afghanistan in particular, and then to India, and we'll come to Iran after that.
Rajiv, this is a historic day for Afghanistan because earlier we all know that Afghanistan is a landlocked country, and Afghanistan was dependent on Pakistan for its trade with India as well as with Southeast Asia, and it is dependent on the other countries.
Yeah.
But with this port coming up, and Afghanistan is a stakeholder in this port, so they will get access to this port, and then they can export these ores and mines which they are opening up for the international players. So it will open up their economy to the international world. So it is seen as a revolutionary step for Afghanistan and its economy, and especially now they can actually bypass Pakistan and its blackmail.
There has also been this fear that terrorism will strike the rail line as well as these goods moving through this corridor as it does in Pakistan for CPEC.
Yeah, it is actually one of the major concerns which Iran has also raised with India. So now India is actually discussing that who will fund this cost of security which would be required. But now the more contentious issues are how this international transport corridor, how will these three countries share this corridor, how those tariffs
will be decided,
and custom procedures will take shape. So these are
harmonization of all that is going to start now.
Yeah.
What about India's point of view for the Central Asian region and accessing countries around Afghanistan and beyond Iran?
See, India is very keen to get into Central Asian market. We all know that US and China dominate these two markets, and India sees a great potential. Right now, with the Central Asian countries, we have trade of less than $2.5 billion, which Indian government feels that it can go 6 to 7 folds once they get access to this route. They see there could be a huge jump in pharmaceuticals, automobiles, and machine tools, textile, these type of industries, and this will obviously create jobs, which is one of the most contentious issue right now for the Indian government. So right now this thing was stuck because Pakistan was not giving us access. They were using it as a bargaining tool in several of our discussions, which are even non-trade related issues. So now India has a more leverage, plus India also has a more leverage against Pakistan, and now India can push forward many of its agendas on Pakistan. So strategically it's a win-win situation for India.
And as far as Iran is concerned, coming out battered from the sanctions, this is a huge ray of hope for Iran, for business that Iran can do with India and what it can do with Central Asia by itself.
See, right now, Iran only has one good port, that is Bandar Abbas. So this Chabahar will obviously give relief to Bandar Abbas. Secondly, if we see the geographical location of this new port, it is on the banks of Sistan, Baluchistan area of Iran, and it is out of the Strait of Hormuz. So that means even if tomorrow if Iran goes for confrontation with Iraq, which is most likely, and it's very volatile situation. So it has a outlet zone, which is out of the range of Iraq. And if we remember in early 90s when Iran and Iraq went for war, so Iran Iran's oil exports were hit because most of those ship consignments were hit by Iraqi army and navy. So Iraq suffered heavy losses. Now it will also give Iran a leverage where they can they can arbitrage their risk around if something goes wrong with Iraq.
The total investment is about $500 million in Shahid Baheshti. I think it's going to be, this port will be renamed as. Yeah. They'll have 5 berths on the port. 2 of those will be devoted to India and Afghanistan trade. But total investment from India's point of view, $500 million. And how much do we expect in terms of trade out of both Afghanistan, Iran and Central Asia?
See, 500 million will also include railway line from Chabahar to Zehedan.
Yeah.
So that will open up, the trade route with Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Plus, we also, have a plan to set up a fertilizer company in near Chabahar,
yeah,
which would be a joint venture of India's PSUs.
Yeah.
So Iran is offering offtake of some gas for this this fertilizer unit. Secondly, we are also looking at one is trade. Yes, India is seeing that in next 5 years the trade of $2 billion will reach $12 to $15 billion with Central Asia.
Yeah.
Plus, we are also building up friends with Iran. We are strengthening our relationship with Iran, where China is also making inroads. China is one of their biggest trade partners.
Yeah.
So they have already reached via train to Iran.
Yeah.
So we are also strengthening our relationship vis-a-vis our Batenoir in China.
Yeah.
So strategically, it is also important. It's not money to money, but strategically it's important for India.
Okay, last question, Anilesh. What was holding up the port so far? It's been now 3 years of this government, and this port has been talked about, God knows, for 10 years, 8-9 years.
See, in 2002, Vajpayee government, they signed an MOU.
So 15 years we've been talking this port.
15 years. Yeah. The major roadblock came, because initially UPA government didn't see, potential. And secondly, we went for that nuclear deal.
And also Iran was in sanctions, under sanctions, so there were a lot of pressure from the US as well.
Yeah, so it's largely because of the US pressure, because we wanted to conclude nuclear deal, and this was one of the barters which government of that day, decided to go for.
Yeah.
And then, sanction killed almost 6 to 7 years.
Yeah.
And now we are into the roughly on the 15th year of negotiations. And now, interestingly, both India and Iran, along with Afghanistan, they are hurrying up things.
Yeah.
So, India complained last time that...
So when does the first berth open? First berth?
So, the deadline for this is December next year.
Okay.
But most of us are expecting that this will come maybe in November, because most of the permissions are hurried up.
November of 18?
November of 18.
The first berth?
First berth for...
And the pipe and the railway line?
Railway line is work in progress, so that will take another 1.5 years.
Okay.
If nothing goes wrong.
So that's where this stands right now. Now it is up to the 3 governments and 3 customs and excise officials and agencies to decide on harmonizing the process of movement of goods through the 3 countries. Once that is in progress, once that is in process, and once that is established, hopefully the port and the railway line should be ready by that time, and the movement would be far more streamlined. With that, thanks Anilesh for this talk.